Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Artsy AF Podcast. Thanks for being here. Today's guest is legendary electronic music producer Mr. Bill. Not only is Bill a music producer, he's also a teacher. You can sign up to become a hardcore Abletoneer on Mr. Bill's website at MrBillsTunes.com, where you get exclusive, advanced Ableton video tutorials. That was Ableton video tutorials, 17 high-quality, royalty-free sample packs, and a lot more stuff. I'm not going to spoil any of it for you. So if you're an aspiring producer, get over there, check it out. Not only is he a music producer and a teacher, he's also a fellow podcaster. We talk about a lot of things in this episode. Well, first I hit him with the brutal facts about the music industry question, and then we kind of fly off from there. We talk about his process a little bit, about collaborating, a little bit about chess. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that's why I asked him about it. Anyway, strap in, hold tight. This is a rapid episode because Bill is knee-deep in album production. He's a busy man. And Bill, if you're listening, thanks for giving me some of your time. And I hope everyone enjoys this episode. Here we go. Sweet. Well, welcome to RTAF, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, man. I didn't look into this too much beforehand. Like, how long has this podcast been around?
We released our first episodes in July of 2019. Mm-hmm. And I had a co-host for a little while. He's another painter, and he dropped out back in May. And so I've just been continuing to do it by myself, and I've I missed a few weeks here and there. So you're episode 61.
Oh, nice. So you're pretty established, and you've done it a fair bit.
Yeah.
Do you mostly chat with like painters and stuff, or are you chatting with all sorts of different people?
Kind of all sorts of different people. Definitely painter heavy for sure. Nice. Recently, I had the idea like, I want to talk to producers, since like Zoom is kind of the only way to talk to people now, without having to be like, are you cool with like meeting up? And
honestly, yeah, I mean, like I was against doing Zoom calls for my podcast.
I was too.
For the longest time, I like just wanted to do them in person, right? Because it's like you can't have a proper, it feels, I don't know, I had this idea that you couldn't have like this genuine conversation over a phone call or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like since switching to Zoom, I actually prefer it. I mean, it's way easier. You can get way more podcasts done.
Totally. Yeah, I think I prefer it too. And I think also people have just gotten a little more used to it. And so it's, myself included, it's just a little easier on people nowadays with all of COVID and stuff. So
yeah, having a podcast, it's just so good, I think, for especially during this time, to just sort of have this built-in time to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, you don't get to socialize that much anymore. So it's kind of like you're taking the time out to be like, all right, I'm going to really heavily focus for like 30 or 40 minutes or whatever on like having a like proper interaction with someone. And I feel like that's healthy in this time.
Oh, definitely. And something I've noticed since the beginning, before even COVID hit, was like, you don't really like hit up your friends and say, hey, would you like to come over and have like a 2-hour conversation or whatever, however long but as soon as there's like a mic and it's a thing, people are all about it.
Yeah, totally.
Well, yeah. So I have this question that I usually reserve for like the middle or maybe sometimes the end of the show. But since we're on a bit of a schedule here, and I want to be respectful of your time, I wanted to know what you think are some brutal facts about the music industry that people might not know about.
Hmm. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know because I don't want to shit on the music industry either, but
Exactly.
I guess like something that's pretty brutal about it that a lot of people um might not necessarily think about before they get into it is that it's not like once like I make a living off music, right?
Yeah.
So like technically by my like 15-year-old self standards, I've made it.
Right. Yeah.
But like it's not what I thought it would be, you know, like I didn't think it would be this I didn't think I'd be just working like 12 hours a day on Ableton, you know. I thought it'd be like, oh yeah, once you've made it, like, you know, you probably just sit around playing guitar and being in a band and like, you know, you just have heaps of friends and like and you just like, you know, eating sick food all the time. Like everyone thinks you're really awesome and you don't have any problems and like everything is just great. You know, that's what making it is. And then you just, you know, go play the show every now and then and to like 1 million people and it's awesome. But it's for sure not like that. It's a fucking grind, no matter what level you're at. In fact, like the bigger you get, the more of a grind it is.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, the biggest artists I know, like I know Dead Mouse pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And the bigger, like he's the biggest artist I know. And I know a few others that are like, you know, somewhere encroaching on that size as well. And the reason they're bigger is because they just work 10 times harder than I do. Like this, it's almost like it's a 1-to-1 thing. Like it's hard, you work harder, you get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people just, I mean, it's not necessarily always the case. You know, obviously people get lucky and right time shit and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, like Skrillex, for instance, he's like one of the biggest in the world. And I mean, I just know he works like fucking 18-hour days. Like I've just heard from people that he just works constantly.
That's got to be like a superpower to be able to work for 18 hours a day and only sleep for 6, you know?
Yeah, I mean, some people are just, you know, geared for that. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, a brutal fact is like people who haven't sort of made it into the industry far enough to see that yet might not know.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Nice.
Yeah, it gets just brutal in terms of how much work you have to do to upkeep your career. But I mean, you know, you have to do that in any career, I guess, so it's not that bad.
Totally.
And it's at least doing something that you like to do.
Yeah, yeah.
What's like a brutal fact about the painting or art industry that I wouldn't know?
Something that I just sort of stumbled on is, and I think it's something that I sort of knew subconsciously or at the periphery for a while, but it's that like the gallery market and the art market, it has a pretty tight knit group of collectors, and that if you don't get their vote, you might not ever crack into the gallery world in a big way. And
Interesting.
also, I asked Rob Supercilious this question, and I totally agreed with his answer. He said that you'll either blow up overnight, or it'll take you like 5 to 10 years longer than you think it will to, like, you know, be making a steady living off what you do.
Off music?
Or that's what he said in terms of music, but I think it's true for painting too. And I don't think anybody really blows up overnight, you know, scare quotes on that. I think it's like they work and work and work, and then all of a sudden a bunch of new people know about them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, there's some right time, right thing stuff that goes on, and some people like kind of do blow up, like not overnight, but you know, pretty quickly. For instance, like, you know, Rob is a good friend of of Joshua Space Jesus, and I mean, he had that experience kind of, right? Like it was just all of a sudden, like over the span of 6 months or a year, he just got massive.
Yeah.
And it's like hard to say why, you know, like he was playing shows just like the rest of us. He was putting music out just like the rest of us, but it's like for some reason he just got massive.
Do you think some of that like has to do with like the image or like just a catchy, like he had a real catchy name, right? Like
I think for him it was like he's just this sort of like tall, attractive, like funny dude.
mhm.
And when he plays a show, he's like on the mic telling jokes and shit like that, and he's just like got this really big personality, and he's got this really cool personality. It's like when you watch a show with him, it feels like you're hanging out and like having a fun time, and it feels like you're a part of like the joke, or like feels like you're a part of the. It doesn't feel like he's this guy being like, I'm better than you, I'm up on the stage and you're down there kind of thing. He's kind of like let's party together kind of thing, and it's just I don't know, it has like a kind of vibe to it, and I think a lot of people resonated with that a lot. And yeah, I also think just the style of music and the image and the name and the brand and all that stuff, everything just sort of like locked into place for the scene that he was in.
Yeah, yeah. I think that like that could be a blessing and a curse, like blowing up that fast. Like I don't know, how I would handle it. Like if all of a sudden I were super famous and going around meeting thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah, the human mind is like not set up for that. The human mind is set up for like being born in one place, never going like further than 100 kilometers of your radius that you were born in, and then hanging out with the same 20 people for your whole life, basically like a small tribe. So I feel like it can do pretty strange shit to one's mind if all of a sudden they have millions of people like wanting to talk to them and stuff.
Yeah. Let's pivot just a little bit. I was curious how you started making music and kind of like your backstory with all that.
I should say before we move on, I'm not saying that did strange things to Josh's mind either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. That was just something I thought about.
Yeah. Sorry. What was the question? It was.
How'd you get started making music? Kind of like, would you mind just giving the listeners like a quick backstory?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So when I was like pretty young, like 10 or something like that, my mum would always come home from work. She worked at a record plant. And at the time she was pressing cassette. I don't know how you say it. She was making cassettes basically. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the cassettes that she was making were of like independent artists in Sydney, Australia, who were just making like weird techno and shit.
Nice.
So from the age of like 10, I had just all these weird techno tapes from underground artists who like just are not even around it today. Like they're just tiny artists in Sydney who were making weird electronic music. So I was listening to those a bunch when I was younger, and I always was like super into them. And then so that was like my first exposure to electronic music. And then I got into like metal and playing guitar a ton through high school. And then during which time my parents had like a little Apple, like one of those bubble Macs. What are they called? Like eMacs or whatever.
Oh yeah, the little desktop things.
Yeah, they look like a little fucking bubble with like a neon case, and like they were all like different colors and shit.
Yeah.
They had one of those, and it had GarageBand on it, so I'd mess around with GarageBand a ton during high school. And then sort of towards the end of high school, my friend took me to what's called a doof in Australia, which is like basically a small festival, but it's like kind of got its own flavor. It's not like an American Wook festival or whatever. It's like this weird Australian bogan festival. And it's not a festival. Like you can't call it that. It's not quite there, like it's just a weird party. And they just play psytrance for like 3 days straight. That's all they play. And it's usually just one stage, and it's usually just psytrance non-stop for 3 days.
Oh, man.
So I was exposed to that, and then I was like, oh, this is cool. I like psytrance. So then I started trying to make that in GarageBand, and then realized I couldn't, and then sort of went through all the DAWs like Fruity Loops, Logic, Cubase, all that shit. And then landed on Ableton and was like, oh, this is cool. Like I click with this DAW. It makes a lot of sense to me for some reason. Like it just seemed logical the way it worked. And then I went to SAE after I was using Ableton for a few years. I was like, I should go get a degree in audio.
SAE is
It's
What's
like the School of Audio Engineering.
Oh, okay.
Or I think that's what it's. I don't know. It's like a institution called SAE Institute, and it's just a university / private college thing where people go to learn about music and audio and stuff, and now film as well, I think.
Nice.
So yeah, I went there and got an audio engineering degree, and then by the time I got out of SAE, I was like basically touring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of the chronology of all of that.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is kind of like this is a basic prompt, but I'm actually curious because when I listen to your tunes, it sounds like there's just like hundreds of edits and all. There's a lot going on that I can't describe in words because I don't know the lingo, and I've never really made a tune on Ableton or anything. But would you also mind like giving us a glimpse into like your process?
Oh yeah, totally. So for starters, like, I mean, I have a website, right, where like I show everyone how to do all of this kind of stuff. It's called MrBillsTunes.com, and like I just have massive courses on there, like thousands and thousands of hours of video of like showing people how I do my stuff. But I mean, essentially what I do is I'm kind of more of like, I guess, a collage artist, I would say, or more of like a I mean, I look at it sort of like painting in these weird ways, you know, like I just sort of mix a bunch of sounds together, like affect them together, render them, chop them up, like do a bunch of processing and resampling and chopping and so on and so forth, and then kind of just try and make all of that weird process noise musical, which is the tough part, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the equivalent, I think, would be like, I don't know, finding like some disgusting log and then trying to like paint on it to make it look like a nice painting, you know? Like I kind of try to do the same thing with my music. I try and like take this like fucked up sound that I made that just shouldn't be like the main thing in a song, and then try and make it the main thing in a song and like build around it. And
are you using like a VST to make the sound, or
it's kind of sound? Just it's random, like it's sometimes from a VST, sometimes it's from like a field recording, sometimes it's from, you know, a mic recording in the studio, sometimes it's just like a random sample I find on the internet, or like some YouTube video that I just like run through ball stretch or something like that. It's just like completely random, just whatever I can get out of the tools I have, I just do that.
Yeah. So is it seems like it's important for you to like keep yourself interested and kind of like challenge yourself.
Totally. That's like the number one goal, I think, or the number one priority, because as soon as I get disinterested in making music, then the whole thing stops, right?
Right.
It's like I need to keep myself interested to keep this train going.
Yeah, that's a cool little trick. I mean, I heard your podcast with Dead Mouse, and it seems kind of like by the way, kudos on your podcast. I'm not a producer, but I love it. I love like the conversational nature of it, and it's a fun listen. If anyone listening wants to check it out, it's just the Mr. Bill podcast. But
thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. On the Dead Mouse episode, he talks about how he has like that crazy overhead in terms of like cost, so that it makes he like has to keep making stuff and like finding new creative ways to
yeah, that's
live.
An interesting way to go about it. I mean, I've never gone that hard on it, but I mean, like, for instance, right now I'm like going way harder on an album than I have in the last like few years, and the reason why is because I just had to pay like, I don't know how much, like 20 grand or something like that out of my out of pocket to pay for visa stuff.
Oh wow.
You know, because I'm like, I had to pay a bunch of lawyers, and then I had to pay a bunch of filing fees, and then I had to like, it's just crazy how much that shit costs. So like, it's because the reason why is because I had to like extend the visa that I'm currently on, which is my O1, and then I'm like also trying to apply for a green card.
Yeah.
Which is just like a long-term sort of working visa, because I've sort of decided that I want to stay in America. I really like it here. So
yeah.
So right now it's like my shit is tight, so it's making me like want to work way harder for sure. So I kind of understand that, but I mean, purposefully doing it, I don't know, like if I would go that far to be like, you know what, I'm gonna like purposefully like get myself an insane car that's just, like as he said, burning holes through his pockets. Like, dude, he told me the McLaren Senna that he had, which is a $1 million car.
Jesus.
Fucking $1 million car. To change the tires on that after a race day is like 20 grand, which is just like,
there goes another visa, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Another visa straight up there. Or like, it's like worth more than my car. Just like on his tires. It's crazy.
That's insane. Yeah. Yeah. So the new album, I definitely wanted to get to this. I think I saw a post last night, actually. Are you releasing it on, like, what was it, February 12th? Or is that just a single or something?
Yeah, there's no... Oh, you might have seen the WAF 10 thing or whatever. Yeah, so that's a compilation on Mousetrap called We Are Friends, and that is... it's just a compilation they do, like, every year or whatever, and this is the 10th one, and I just have one track on there.
Nice. Do you have a release date for that album? Or a projected time?
No. I mean, I'm trying to get it done. Like, I'm trying to get all the production done by, at the latest, like, April. But, sorry, I keep coughing. I actually just woke up, like, literally before this. I went to bed at, like, 6 a.m. and...
Sometimes those, like, early morning hours are the best for creativity, I feel like.
Oh, I was not being creative. I was just watching YouTube videos.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I was just watching like Vsauce and like mountain biking videos.
Oh, nice.
I was not being productive.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that too. It seems like you have like a few hobbies outside of just making music. How important is it to you to have those?
I mean, up until recently, it was not important. Music was enough. And with touring happening when it was, that was like plenty in my life. Like I was traveling constantly, and that was interesting enough. And that in itself included enough experiences that I thought it was, plenty of, I could just do that forever and I would never get bored of it. So, I mean, just traveling and hanging out with so many different people and going into sessions all over the place, like, and writing music with different people and playing shows in different cities and meeting different people and yeah, it was just like crazy. But now having taken this whole year off with just none of that, it's been super important for me to find new hobbies, because it was just like I can't just do music producing in the studio constantly. It's just gets so dry and like boring, and I just feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over on autopilot. It becomes very monotonous, and so yeah, I had to get into like a bunch of shit. I had to get into something I could do while I was in the studio, so I could like flick between production mode and like something else, right? Which used to be cigarettes for me. Like I would be producing music and then I would like walk away and just smoke a cigarette and then like come back 10 minutes later. Now it's playing a game of chess. Awesome. So it's like I'll just play like a 10-minute game of chess. And then come back. And then the thing that I do now for like getting out of the studio is mountain biking, but I also just like to go for walks and shit now too, which is something I never used to like to do. I would always just like I fucking didn't do any exercise, man, until like the age of 26 or something. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like so unhealthy back in the day. And then and then I'm also into like cooking now as well, which is good, because also back in the day I was never into cooking, so I just eat bullshit all the time. So it was like the perfect combo for like just the worst shit. Yeah, I've noticed recently too, like exercising is so much more important to me now. I mean, like I'm 35, so I'm kind of coming up over this hill of like realizing that if I don't get some kind of exercise, like I don't feel right, and then if I don't feel right, I'm not motivated to make art. And even if I force myself to do it, it turns out like not the best. And yeah, that's also something we have in common, man. I started playing chess again during this quarantine, and it's so much fun. Like, I don't know. I know this is RTAF podcast, but like, I want to talk about chess for a second. Yeah, let's do it. Like, when did you start playing?
I guess originally, like, I was in chess club in elementary school, and then sort of like put it down for a very long time. And
do you play on chess.com or Lee Chess or
chess.com? Yeah.
Nice. What's your rating?
Well, so they have different ratings for like different times. My like day rating is pretty killer. It's like in the 1300s.
Oh, that's good.
But then like the like 5 minute rapid one fluctuates between like 7 and like 900.
Oh, that's
Because
pretty good too.
yeah,
Yeah, my rapid is like 1450,
damn,
and my puzzles are like 1700, and my daily is about 1200.
nice. So did you play chess beforehand?
So my dad taught me the game when I was really young, and
Nice.
I used to like play him, and then I was like playing my brother a bunch too, and it got to a point where I could just like beat both of them. And I just didn't have anyone else to play with at the time. Like I didn't have a computer. I didn't have like any books or anything. So I kind of like just hit the limit with what I could do. And then I just did the same deal as you. I just put it down for a long time. Then in high school, there was like one guy, in my year who could just like beat me every time. So I played with him a little bit, learned a few tricks here and there. Like he showed me the scholar's mate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like, so I like learned those things, and then I put it down for a long time, and then I kind of just got back into it like, I don't know, a few years ago. But I only really started taking it seriously through quarantine, like got some teachers and stuff like that.
Oh,
So now
nice.
I have two teachers now. One is a grandmaster and one is a national master. So I've been like really learning the fundamentals properly, and like really learning, stuff about like pawn structure and stuff about like positional advantage and strategy and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think that learning kind of a new skill in any area translates? It's kind of like a kind of teaching yourself how to learn in general. Do you feel like that?
In some ways, I mean, I think something like chess teaches you maybe like patience and, maybe just builds up the callus of like just using your brain to problem solve a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I don't think like learning chess like helps you use a bandsaw or something like that.
Right.
Or, like, I don't think it makes you like a better cook or anything like that. But yeah,
Sure.
I think like it can, some of the brain exercises that it makes you do probably can translate to some other things that require thinking as well.
Yeah. Do you know who Josh Waitzkin is?
Josh, did he write the book The Art of Learning?
Yeah. I was just gonna mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only reason I know this is because I had Hero Bust on my podcast yesterday, and he actually mentioned this exact book to me. Yeah.
Nice, of course. Yeah, I think that I don't know, that book is really cool in that it sets up like a systematic way of learning, but also once you like for in the case of chess, for instance, like you set up all these systematic ways of learning and you learn all the positions and all these things, like it's very logical. But then like he says that once you're in front of the board with another opponent, you don't have to think so much. It becomes kind of like this brain memory or muscle memory, or kind of like a neurological pathway that's already been blazed a little bit.
Yeah, like intuitive.
But this guy, not to bore you again with the synopsis of the book, but he like switched lanes in his 20s and became like this Tai Chi master and competed all over the world in that. And he kind of used the same principles that he learned.
Yeah,
in chess.
I'm gonna buy this book because I was gonna buy it yesterday after Hero Bus told me, and then I was like, $16 for the audiobook. I can't really be spending that money, but
Right.
like now that you've also told me, it's probably a sign that I should check it out.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid book. I read it back in the day and then recently picked it up again because I started playing chess.
Nice, and he's like a good chess player or something? Or?
Oh, he was like, so you know the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
That's him as a little, or it's not actually him, but that's supposed to be him as the little kid. Like he was like a prodigy I'm not sure if he won any international like world things because I haven't read the book in a while, but Yeah, he was a crazy chess player.
Sick.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
What's your username on chess.com? I'll challenge you to a daily game or something.
Sweet. It's the Norris sphere, so it's all one word, and it's here. You want me to spell it for you real quick?
Yeah.
It's just the, and then Norris is Norris, and then Phere.
The Norris sphere. Andrew Thompson. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Challenge to. You are rated plus 442. That's in 10 minutes. Never mind.
Yeah.
Daily. Here we go. Did I play as random? All right. Sweet. Challenge sent.
Maybe we could just do a live stream of us playing chess. Just kidding.
Oh, I'd be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet.
I stream chess sometimes on my Twitch channel.
Nice. Oh, Mr. Bill's Tunes 1. That's gotta be you.
Yeah. So my Mr. Bill's Tunes account, my original one, I just forgot my password and got locked out of my email address and just I can't access it. So I had to make a Mr. Bill's Tunes 1 account.
Ah, nice. Well, sweet. I guess. So you have mentors or teachers in the chess game. Did you have any, or do you have any mentors in the music or with music? Sorry.
Yeah, totally. I think when I first started, I had a few. There was this guy in Sydney named Fahad who was a mastering engineer who I'd hang out with all the time, and he taught me a bit. And obviously all of my teachers at SAE were really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I have a buddy named Matt Davis who's been on my podcast before, and he's also my acoustician. He's also Tipper's acoustician and Jade Cicada's acoustician and Detox Unit, and he's just a really, really good acoustician. And he's just incredibly intelligent and knows what he's talking about when it comes to just how sound works, not necessarily producing, but he's also a mastering engineer. So I would consider him somewhat of a mentor as well. I've learned a lot from him. And I guess I have a lot of peers. I have a group of friends that because with music, I don't know if it's painting, right? Where there's kind of a loudness war in music where, everyone's trying to get their shit louder. And the equivalent for painting would be everyone trying to get their shit brighter or something,
Yeah. I think that, I actually remember seeing this kind of graph about the colors used in painting over the history of art. And it goes from kind of grayish brown, and then once it hits, I think the 70s or 80s, maybe even a little bit before that, it's all these bright, crazy, just crazier colors. And I think, I don't really know what to think about that. I think part of it is that...
Well, the introduction of psychedelics had a lot to do with it, right?
Definitely that, I think. But also I'm not sure, back in the day, Renaissance era, it was so hard to find pigment. It was a very rare thing. You couldn't just go to the store and get some paint. You had to find the pigment, mix it in with the medium, and then you or your studio goons or whatever were the ones making your own paint to paint your painting. And they were using, mostly just minerals from the earth. And then once acrylic paint came along, I think they were able to kind of tap into different sort of colors that we didn't really, we had them and we could see them, but they weren't really in nature. You wouldn't just be walking around in Europe in the Renaissance and see some crazy lime green fluorescent thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's a brightness war because there's so many different lanes of painting, but I guess in the sort of psychedelic lane, I think that people are definitely going for I think just crazy colors tend to catch people's eye. And with Instagram and social media being the main way we all share it, you have a split second to catch someone's attention. And like typically I think the brighter things are, maybe your eye lingers a little longer on that. And then if it's actually like well done and things are like popping and looking like there's a 3D space on your 2D canvas or whatever, then people stick around a little longer. So yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, there might be some parallels there for sure.
Yeah, so I guess like what I was saying is like a group of friends that I have. I don't know if you have this with artists as well, but like essentially I have like a small set of people I trust who like I just trust their opinion on like loudness and brightness and just like all that kind of stuff. So I'll send my stuff to all of them to sort of get my opinion on, you know, whether or not the mix is sort of sitting right and whether or not it's loud enough and whether or not it's like, you know, bassy and bright enough and just like if everything's sort of hitting properly and whatnot. Is there like an equivalent with painting where, you know, you show it to a friend and they're like, oh no, man, this definitely needs like more green or something?
Yeah, for sure. Right now, a small group of my friends, we're trying to hang out, and we are hanging out basically every week. And the intention originally was kind of to have a bit of a critique at the end of the hangout session. So when we hang out, you know, it's not like music we can talk and goof off and paint all at the same time. But yeah, I think that definitely happens for sure. Or I like to utilize that. I also used to have a roommate, shout out Martin Cash, who just like he knows a lot about painting and how to make something look good. And I just, you know, we'd be painting kind of in the same studio and I'd turn to him and be like, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with my painting? And he'd kind of look at it for a minute and be like, I think you could like boost the midtones a little bit, make it more of a shape instead of just having like bam, a highlight, bam, a shadow, which I guess in music would kind of, you know, if you were just working on those polarities, you'd just have like a bass, you know, or a sub, and then some crazy little high frequency thing. And it's really in the like the mid value and color tone range where things start to take form and shape. But yeah,
I mean, I think Yeti has a song like that, you know, where that crack the window tune. It's just that really low 808 at like 20 hertz and then this really high pitched synth at like 16K or something like that and just nothing in between.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely pull things off like that for sure. And it's you know, it's cool to break the rules or the rules, you know, in scare quotes. But yeah, we have something like that. I think something I noticed is that painters, it seems like, are a bit more fragile when it comes to critiquing their work, especially like in public, which, you know, decorum states or whatever that you shouldn't necessarily offer advice without being like, could I give you some advice first? But that's just something I've noticed. Like, I think with musicians, if someone's like, oh, I see the whatever, you know, funk influence in your music or the tipper influence in your music, people are like, oh, cool. Yeah. Thanks. Whereas in like art, I've noticed that if you kind of like, if you're like, oh, this looks a lot like Alex Gray or Further or whoever, sometimes people are like, get a little bit more defensive.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we're like more visual creatures though, right? Like I feel like with audio, it's easy to to hear something and be like, oh, this sounds like XYZ. And it's very easy to like discount someone else's opinion on that because music just is so subjective.
Totally.
I feel like even more so than visual art, right? Whereas with visual art, you know, we're just looking at shit constantly we're hearing shit constantly too, but we're not hearing music constantly, right? From the day we're born, but
right.
we are seeing, I guess, like forms of art basically since from the day we're born.
Right.
And it's just, I think, you know, you walk into like anyone's house and they like generally have, you know, some painting or some shit on the wall, but it's just like, super easy for everyone, I think, to have an opinion on visual art and be like, oh, if you ask someone what their favorite color is, like everyone has an answer to that question, right? They're all like, oh, my favorite color is like dark blue and purple or something.
Yeah,
and then you ask somebody like, what's your favorite frequency? Like they're going to be like, oh, I don't know, like 200 and 432 hertz or whatever. Like it's hard to, not a lot of people have that sort of same deep discrepancy for music as they might for visual art.
Yeah, I think music has more of this like magical feel too, because I think less people, there's the barrier to entry for like learning music is, I think, quite a bit harder than just being able to draw something or paint something, because like you said, we are more visual creatures. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have a favorite frequency?
No, I mean, I have like favorite ranges, I think. Like I'm a big fan of, the 20 to 80 hertz range. I'm a big fan of like the 5 to 12 kilohertz range. I'm a big fan of like,
Yeah.
I kind of like different pockets and I kind of dislike other pockets, like I'm not a huge fan of the, like, but it also depends on the key of the track, right? Because like, the key of a track that's in C is going to be, I'm going to like different ranges than a key if the track is in the key of like, G or something like that, or A or some shit. So I don't know, like I generally, for whatever key the track is in, I try and get rid of like whatever the low mids are usually, because they sort of just get in the way. So like the 300 hertz range usually is sort of like just this weird muddy area that I don't like so much. But it's really hard to say, right? Because it's all like very situational, depending on like what's going on in the track and depending on all sorts of shit.
Yeah, it's all about the context. Like in painting, I don't really have a favorite color, just as long as it looks good next to the other colors that are there, Yeah,
exactly. Sometimes, a shitty range of frequencies that I generally don't like can work really well in certain tracks, like aesthetically.
Yeah. So I've noticed that like you've done like hundreds of collaborations, it seems like. Maybe not hundreds, I don't know, a lot. You've done a lot of collaborations. I think I'm just curious as to how those work. Are you usually sitting in the studio with the person you're collaborating, or are you passing it back and forth, or?
Usually more often than not, I'm not in the studio with the other person. And that's not because I don't want to be. I would much prefer to be, but it's just like logistically it makes more sense to just do it, like just like over the internet or whatever.
Yeah.
Just because then both people can sort of work on their own time and also like on their own computers,
Yeah.
I don't think as easy as just like handing someone a paintbrush or a pen and them being like, all right, yeah, I know how to like use this. It's, everyone has their favorite like VSTs and they like know exactly where their sample folders are. And it's like, it's, jumping on someone else's computer is always like tough to just like get straight into it, especially if it's like a Mac and you're on PC like I am, or if it's a PC and you're on Mac like some people are, because then like control and command are like in different spots and have different actions in the DAW. So like all of your muscle memory for like keyboard shortcuts and shit goes out the window, and it becomes like a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah. I think it's a little, it's obviously different between visual artists and producers. Are you guys communicating with words a lot, or are you just like putting things in, sending it back, and maybe just getting an opinion?
So usually like one person will start and then you'll send the project file over to another person and they'll mess with it a bit, and then like I'll send back a thing. Either I'll just say like, send me back the project file and I'll add to it, I like what you did, or like, I didn't like some things or whatever. And then once it gets to a certain point, I guess like one person usually decides like, I'm going to finish this. And then they just keep working on it and sending the other person whips, or, renders.
Yeah.
And then the other person will just be like, oh, they'll just send back timestamps basically, and like problems that they have at those times. So they'll be like, oh, like 0:51 seconds. This thing is like a bit harsh. And then like, 2 minutes 36, like this weird sound needs like a frequency notched out of it, and so on and so forth.
Nice. Yeah, I think in painting, like if you're in the moment painting with someone and they do something and you don't like it and you go and you just paint over it, it's a lot more like a visceral thing, and you really have to, it's like this dance where you have to give space for the other person, but you also have to communicate. Like, I don't know if there's
Well, you can't like save as with a painting, right? Like
right.
it's physical. I mean, maybe with Photoshop it would be different because
Yeah.
you can just hit like Control Shift S and save a new version, and then do whatever you want over the other person's shit. And if they don't like it, they can always revert back to their thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know, and you
definitely.
can have. So that happens a lot in music. It's like I'll change a bunch of shit, and then the other person will be like, "Oh man, I really like that whole section that I made," and then I'll be like, "All right, well, like I don't like it so much, and I like my section, so let's try and like work out a medium where like both of those sections are like, you know, happening at the same time or something, and
Yeah.
figure something out."
Do you think you've learned a lot from collaborating?
Yeah, the main thing I've learned is that like you just have to respect the collaborator's ear, right? Which is like a tough thing to do because some
Sure.
people just think things that I think sound like garbage sound good, and vice versa. Like sometimes I'll do something and someone else will be like, "Dude, that just sounds bad,"
Yeah.
and I'll like argue it to the death that it doesn't, you know, like that it just sounds good, but it's just yeah. I mean, some people, you know, everyone's ears are different, everyone's eyes are different. No one hears or sees anything the same way, so it's just sometimes a sound just I don't hear what they're hearing, you know, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
think
also, I mean, it has a lot to do with your influences too, right? Like some people might
yeah.
think a certain synth sound sounds like cheesy,
Mhm.
and like other people might think like a certain vocal sound sounds like not cheesy, and you know, so it's hard to. I mean, yeah, it's just it's very subjective, I guess. So
Mhm. Do you have influences outside of music that you refer to or that you like aesthetically want to like translate into sound?
not really, but I would say the closest thing, if anything, would probably be film.
Mhm.
Like just because that's another really good medium for conveying like emotion in a similar way that music does. But yeah, not really.
Mm.
I would say it's hard to like, you know, then again, I've never really tried to like look at a painting and like make a song that represents it or whatever. So, I
Yeah,
mean, I've scored movies and games and shit, but yeah, maybe I should try that more actually.
I think for me and for several other visual artists I know, we're real influenced by music. And in fact, once I started getting back into making images after a long time, I sort of was like making brushstrokes like to the beat, and like I was, you know, kind of visualizing how things would happen via the sound.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um, well, man, I know that we're definitely over 30 minutes here, so I just to close it out, what are a few words you'd use to describe yourself when you're at your best?
When I'm at my best, I'm definitely organized and I guess like productive, you know, getting a lot done. Like I don't complain
Yeah.
when I'm at my best, you know. I have a decent sleep schedule.
Mm.
I'm eating well, I'm exercising, but at the same time like getting a lot of music done, you know, like I'm at my best just when I'm the most balanced, I think. I think I'm at my best when I do the things that I just know I should do.
Yeah.
You know, like when, I mean, I always know what I should do. I always know that I'll sit here all day sometimes on like Reddit or something, just being like, I should exercise and make some music and go and cook some food and then make some more music and then go to bed at like 12 and wake up at 8 the next day or something. You know, like all positive things.
Right.
And then I'll just like ignore that voice in my brain and do none of it.
Yeah.
That's when I'm at my worst.
Yeah.
And when I'm at my best is when I just like adhere to that voice that just knows what I should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful endorsement for like not being distracted, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you just like it's just like discipline, right? Like if
Yeah.
you just take that thing in your brain, because I mean, it's not like fucking rocket science to be a healthy, balanced human being.
Right.
You know how it's done. I mean, everyone's probably done it before. So it's just a matter of like taking that and just actually doing it. But it's just, I don't know. It's really, I don't know why, because like at the end of a day of not exercising and just sitting here all day and doing nothing, it's not like I feel good. Like I feel like shit about it, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. If I do all of the work, I feel great. Like I feel really fulfilled. And just the same with like exercise. I've never done an exercise session and after it being like, fuck, shouldn't have done that, I feel like shit.
Right.
Yet like every single time I eat like a pint of ice cream, after it I'm like, man, I should not have done that, I feel like shit. Yet my brain still goes like, you should definitely do the ice cream thing and not the exercise thing, you know? It's just some weird fucking shit that you just, I don't know how to fight it.
I think it's like, it's just sort of training your brain to look at things in the long term rather than going for like short term, or I guess the term would be called delay of gratification, right? Like,
yeah, like rather than going for the short dopamine releases, like the instant gratification stuff, then try and like go the long route to fulfillment.
Yeah. Well, man,
definitely a good idea.
Yeah, I want to be, courteous of your time. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up.
I should probably actually do some of these things that I've been talking about. Like,
hell yeah, man.
Yeah, actually, was gonna listen to an audiobook and clean my house today, and then maybe do some exercise, and then try and finish a song that I'm working on. So if I can get all that done, I'll be happy.
Right.
And not eat too much sugar.
Yeah, sweet. Stay healthy, man. And I'm looking forward to playing you in chess, and maybe at some point we could stream it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be down. I mean, I'll make some moves. Oh, it's my move actually. Yeah, I'll open with D4 because that's
classic.
How I open. Yep.
You like art? Do you really like fucking art? Tune in to RCAF next week.